In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use HDRI Link and area light maps to make this really cool looking shiny watch. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Chad from Greyscalegorilla, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to use area light maps for HDRI Link to light up a cool watch. Not this exact watch. The watch I use in the tutorial is going to be a Rolex. I don't have a Rolex, so this is it's a prop. It's a fossil, but whatever. Anyway, I hope you liked the video, so let's jump in. Okay, so here's what I'm setting out to make. I made this test render, promo render for area light maps a while back, and this is what we're going to aim for. And we're going to try to do it using the brand new area light maps HDRI pack that works with HDRI Link by Greyscalegorilla. So you can see here it's not a super technically challenging setup. It's just a few lights with interesting reflections, tastefully set up, and really that's not going to be a super complex setup, but it is going to require us to change a few things around and really try to art direct these reflections the way that we want. But before I jump in and start to show off like how that stuff is done, I want to go through the way that I would sometimes used to do it, which is using HDRI Link and dome lights, and in particular, one of our great HDRI packs called Pro Light Metals or Pro Studios Metals. So if I grab a redshift dome light and I just turn on my IPR, and I've got pretty generic render settings. I'm not going to get too deep into that because that's not really not what this video is about. Let's jump into our dome light and grab HDRI Link. Throw HDRI Link onto this dome light. If you haven't checked out HDRI Link, it is definitely one of my favorite plugins that we make. Okay, so let's double click that. It's going to open up our HDRI browser. You can see I've already got the area light maps already loaded in here. We've got 30 different map types, which are, a lot of them are taken from actual photographs from actual light fixtures and bounce cards. So let's just jump into the pack that I mentioned before. So if I was going to do this, light this watch up with purely just an HDRI, I would probably grab something in the Pro Studios Metal and maybe grab something like this. And then of course I would hide it from the background so we can just look at it like that. And then I would sort of rotate it around until I found an angle that I thought looked interesting. And that looks pretty good, but it's really not going to help you if a client comes in and says, you know, we like what's happening on the right side of this watch, but we don't like what's happening on the left. Can you move that down a little bit? You're kind of screwed because it's an HDRI. You can't really break it apart very easily. So you're going to have to start adding lights and trying to figure it out, or maybe try to recreate this using lights. And it's not really going to work. And then Lake Kit Pro 3, as amazing as it is, you know, it's a great tool, but it can be overkill for a simple setup like this. And that's why we made these area light maps. And that's why it's exciting to be able to use these on area lights. So that's a new thing, you know, and that's a pretty cool thing. All right, so let's just start over here. We've got default light really kicking. I do have some bloom and whatnot going on, but I'm not going to get into that. All right, so let's grab a area light. And the first thing I'm going to do is jump out into, turn off the IPR, out to my perspective view here. I am going to set up a target for this area light. So I'm going to go to the area light general, and we're going to go to this little fly out here and say add target and null, and make sure that null is right where my watch is right there. I can move the area light out now. It doesn't really matter. Can just be anywhere it wants to be. Okay, so we've got an area light set up. Let's go ahead and jump into our IPR. Let's make sure that we're looking through the camera. All right, I am going to turn off the, bloom because it's extremely crazy right now. Oh, it's actually very high. That's why. Bring that bloom threshold way down, and then the amount way down, and we'll just turn it off. Okay, so that light is extremely bright. Let's bring the exposure way down. Let's also do that. Cool. So now we can throw HDRI Link onto this area light, which is, like I said, it used to be something that we would only apply to dome lights. But now that we have these area light maps and it works perfectly with HDRI Link on area lights, this is just a great way to work. So let's grab that one, and we're going to grab HDRI Link. and grab the area light, go up to texture, drag the texture onto the tag just like you would in a dome light, and boom, there you go. You can instantly see we've got this nice softbox reflecting in our shot. If I actually put this behind that and I say visible, you'll be able to see that softbox in the shot. Actually, that's pretty cool. And when you're lighting products like this that are very reflective, very almost chrome-like, it's about where you put the reflections. It's not necessarily about where you put the lights, because chrome doesn't really have any diffuse. You're not really lighting anything. The only thing you're actually lighting is going to be the stuff on the face here on the inside. Anyway, okay, so that's pretty cool. So I'm going to basically set up my key light, which is going to be up in the right-hand corner, upper right-hand corner of this watch, and then I'll go in and probably tweak which map I want. But for now, I think that looks pretty good. I am going to use a tool. If you haven't checked this tool out, I highly recommend it. It's called the lighting tool. So with the light selected, I'm just going to grab my command search, which is just going to be Shift-C, and I'm going to type lighting tool, hit enter. And over in my attributes panel, now I have this ability to change the mode from specular placement, all these different things. I'm going to use specular placement. I am not going to be creating any lights on this. So it is basically going to now give me this little yellow helper. And if you notice as I sort of mouse over the different parts of the watch, the yellow helper is orienting itself based on the surface normal. Now what that's going to do is it's going to position the light to reflect off of that normal, and essentially what I'm doing is placing a specular. So if I hold this down and I start moving this around, you're going to see that this light is going to start to be placed on wherever I choose to give it that highlight. I could just put it right on that edge if I wanted to get that edge. I could put it right on the edge of this bezel here. Actually, this is looking pretty good. And this lighting tool is already in Cinema. It's just not something that a lot of people use, and I'm not really sure why. It's very useful. Anyway, okay, so that light is placed, and I feel like I might make it a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to scale this light down a little bit. Something like in there. Feels pretty good to me. All right. Now I'm going to play around with some different light types. Right now I'm just using that sort of big softbox, but I just want to see what some of these abstract ones, I don't know if you noticed these earlier, but these abstract light types are based off of those exact same maps that we saw in Pro Studios Metal. So Pro Studios Metal has a lot of these sort of abstract, splotchy bits, and that's because those types of maps look really great on metals. So I wanted to bring some of those into area light maps because I feel like they're very useful, and especially if you have them in a situation like this where you can actually move them around and control where they are and how they're scaled. It's very interesting. So I'm just going to try a few of these and find one that I like. That one's too much. That's not bad. I'm going to rotate this light now and just see what that gives me. Oh, I like that. That's looking pretty good. Okay, so now we have our main key light. It's getting a little blown out here. I might bring it down just a little bit. There we go. All right, so we got one light placed. Let's go ahead and duplicate that light. And this next one, let's jump back into our main view, and we're going to grab that lighting tool again. And this time I want to put this highlight on the opposite side, because really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make the viewer's eye sort of go diagonally through the frame. At least that's what I'm doing right this second. All right, so let's just jump into this view, and I'm going to scale this light up just to cover a little bit more space on that watch. And for this light type, I'm going to try a couple of different ones. We could do something extreme like this, but it's just, this is too much detail in that. I don't want that. I don't want something that's like harsh either. I want something that's sort of in between. So maybe I'll try the softbox gradient, because what that's going to do is it's giving me a nice fall off, but I do want to rotate it so that that gradient is sitting more like this. And then I'm just going to move it in local space and just try to push that gradient a little bit that way. I don't know. I'm not really feeling that either. Let me try one of the softbox edges. So this is why I love using it this way, because there's just, you can just play around and experiment with exactly what you want to do. Yeah, that's feeling better. Okay, I'm just going to bring the intensity of that down a little bit. Something like in there. That feels pretty good. Okay, cool. So now I have a pretty decent arc going, a line for someone's eye to go. I think I need to add a nice backlight though. So let's go ahead and add a backlight. I'm just going to pull this light behind, hold down Control and duplicate it and drop it right behind everything. I'm going to drop it right there. It doesn't really matter if it's squared or not. I'm going to turn off its visibility. And let's turn off all the other lights. I do like to work in a very isolated way. I like to just isolate the light that I'm working on just so I can understand how that light is contributing to my shot. All right, so I'm just bringing the scale of this light way, way up. You can see it over here, but it's giving me a nice little rim light on the watch, which I really, really like. So if we start to bring these other lights back in, you're going to start to see this come to life. All right, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so maybe this backlight is a bit too much on the bottom, so I'm just going to walk it up. And I'm going to throw a different texture on that one. I'm actually going to use the softbox gradient, which is just going to soften that up a little bit. Now I can bring that intensity back up, and I'm going to lower it back down, getting it off that top edge if possible. Something like that. Okay. All right. I'm getting happier with it. Now maybe I want to add a little bit of something on this watch band on the bottom here. So I'm just going to take that first light, I'm going to copy and paste it, and I'm just going to pull it. Actually, we're just going to do it the same way we did the other one. Grab the lighting tool, and let's pull that right off this band right here. Cool. All right, so that one's on. I do think one of these artistic, sort of abstracty, splotchy ones is going to look best down there. Oops, did I have that not selected? Okay, there we go. All right, now I'm just going to bring the intensity of that guy way down because I don't want that to be the focal point. Let's just bring the multiplier down 50%, 25%, and 10%. There we go. I just want to feel it. I don't necessarily want that to be distracting. All right, we're getting closer. We're getting closer, and all of this is completely editable. All of this, if a client came in and said, hey, I don't like where that highlight's placed, you can place it. You don't like the reflection, you can change it. It's not necessarily a new workflow. People have been texturing area lights for as long as there's been area lights. But the difference here is that we're using the same sort of workflows, HDRI Link, which I really liked, being able to swap out and try things and audition new lights and not have to jump into a file browser and search for it and grab it and all that sort of thing. That's just a huge pain in the butt. Okay, so for this next one, I want to throw a little bit of light at the top here, just on the face, just right there on the face. So I'm going to grab an area light because this one I don't want to copy with all of the target and whatnot. I want this one to be sort of on its own a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off all the lights but the one I'm working with because that's just the way I like to work. And I'm going to make this light pretty small, something like this. Let's bring it right over the top. And I do want to make sure, I am going to change, what do I want to do here? I want to adjust this a little bit. I'm going to change the spread. I'm definitely going to change the spread because I want it to be very much in the center. And I'm going to bring the exposure way down, like 20%. Something like this. And I don't want it to affect the spec, so I'm going to go into the glossy and turn that down. And I'm just going to start to turn up the intensity now. You can see what I'm doing. I'm just lighting the face of the watch. Okay, so let's go ahead and make this really tiny. And let's adjust that spread down even more. And the scale of it down even more. See what I'm doing? I'm just trying to get a nice little vignette of that watch face right in there. Sweet. Now I'm just going to move this back a little bit to try to get more of that logo. Perfect. All right, cool. So now I can start to turn on these other lights and start to see its contribution. Kind of looks cool just like that, super moody. There it is. Okay, sweet. So maybe now, I'm not sure how that would look. I wouldn't mind seeing a little atmosphere coming down from the top into this shot. So I am going to do that really quickly. I'm just going to pull this light up as a duplicate. I'm going to make this very big. Not that big, probably. Maybe something like this. Again, I'm going to turn off everything that I'm currently working on, and go into the rays, make sure that I turn glossy back on. Actually, I take that back. I'm not even going to affect glossy or diffuse with this light. I'm only going to affect volume. So let's give it some volume contribution, and let's turn on a redshift environment and give it a little bit of a, that's probably too much there. Let's increase our samples. Well, I'm not going to worry about that right now. We'll get into that later, maybe if we have time. Okay, so that's feeling pretty good. I think I want to change. I'm going to use a linear fall off on this because I want to be able to adjust the fall off myself. And I'm just going to scale that intensity way down. Something like that. And let's bring that a bit wider. Have it sit out of frame a little bit more. And jump back into that light. Let's do, it's extreme. Let's bring the fall off down a little bit. Okay, now I'm just going to adjust the spread. There we go. Okay, that's feeling better. All right, so now we can look at the contribution of everything plus that environment, the fog. And I feel like that is just way too strong. Let's bring the contribution scale, knock that in half. And maybe a little less. Cool. Something like that's working pretty well. And I feel like it needs to be a bit wider. There we go. I'm just kind of adding a little bit of atmosphere to the top of this, just to kind of make it feel a little bit more interesting. Okay, so let's bring the fall off back up a little bit. As the fall off is it's kind of harsh. I'm not really into that. I feel like the overall controls are getting better in Redshift, but they still have a little ways to go. Yeah, but this is looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and bring in some of those post effects again. And let's turn on our bloom and make sure our bloom is going to be a little bit brighter. Something like that. And maybe like the threshold so it's not going to bloom everything quite as much. In this sort of compact view, it's sort of hard to select that. Cool. Yeah, I'm digging this. And now, of course, like all of this is completely editable. And a client, or, director, whoever, could come in and like change things up, and it really wouldn't be a big deal because you've got full control. Plus, if they're like, oh, this is great, but, we really want to see like a light cutting across the glass on the Rolex, that's really easy to do now, especially with our light maps. Let's go ahead and duplicate this light over. And again, I'm going to isolate that light so that we can just look at its contribution. And I'm going to grab the lighting tool, and we're just going to place it right on the face of this guy. Boom. All right, so with this one, I'm probably going to use a typical sort of softbox large, and then I'm going to just move it off to one of the sides. Let's see. Maybe like this direction, right in there. Cool. And maybe we want to rotate it because the client's going to be really prescriptive about how they want that highlight to, what direction they want that to face. Maybe it's something like that. I like that. Okay, it's cool, but I don't necessarily want it to affect the anything but the glass. And in fact, I don't even want it to affect diffuse, so I'm going to go ahead and turn diffuse all the way off. And now I'm just going to jump into my perspective, my camera view, and we're going to go under the project and tell it to include only the crystal. Boom. Done and done. Now let's go ahead and turn on all the other lights. And I feel like this fog is like way over the top. I'm going to turn that off actually for a minute. Is that not contributing right now? Huh. Let's go ahead and turn it way up. Maybe I actually accidentally picked the wrong item? That's strange. Okay, so let me just try that. Let's troubleshoot this for a sec. This definitely should be working. Let's try doing it to the bezel. Okay, so now it's including the bezel. Now if I include the crystal, it's there. So if we remove the bezel now, that's all working. So the second I turn on that one, it works. Turn on that one, it works. Turn on that one, it works. Get out of that selection mode. That one's working. So for whatever reason, oh, you know what I bet's happening? It's my fault. So that light is actually occluding the light that we have up here. So it's actually exists behind it. So let's go into local transform mode, and we're just going to pull that light way, way in, which means that we're going to have to make it much smaller. And there we go. So that's a bit more like it. Always something. Always something. All right, so let's bring that intensity way down again. Something like that. I personally don't like it with the cutting on there, so hopefully you'd be able to talk your client out of that choice, but if not, you have that ability to roll that highlight over the front face of the watch if you want. Work. But in my case, I don't like it, so I'm going to turn it off. Anyway, so in a nutshell, that is the benefits of area light maps, and this is a little bit of an insight on how I light products like this and my approach to lighting jewelry and small reflective items like this, like watches and whatnot. But some of these techniques, they carry over to lots of different lighting. Doesn't have to be necessarily just product lighting. But anyway, I hope you got something out of it, and I will see you in the next one. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, give us the old thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you want to learn more about area light maps, check the description below. We'll throw links down there to everything. Yeah, and until next time, I'll see you later.